Hello everyone, I've just got back from an event in Tyneside cinema called TV Time Machine, an event with Chris Jackson. We had Chris Jackson come out and introduce us and talk us through some important TV reports that he's been a part of over the past 40 years. Now, I didn't really know who Chris Jackson was, but I thought it'd be an interesting event. I came to realise that he is a pretty big news reporter covering a lot of big events. For instance, the outbreak of foot and mouth disease, Robert Black, which was a big story here in the Northeast. He'd go through different key areas of news covered, spanning from identity, sport, technology, which I did particularly enjoy, seeing just how far things have come. He would stop and take some questions if anybody had some at the end of a report on that certain topic. And it was just a really fun, constant flowing event and filled with fun, interesting and heartwarming tales. For example, these two beautiful and very different stories about two amazing women, who you can see here. The lady on the left, Jeannie Lowes, who was a UK vet from Newcastle and travelled to Sri Lanka to help sick and injured animals. And on the right, you've got Jo Milne, who has Usher syndrome. She was actually in attendance of this and I managed to get a picture with her. She was a lovely lady and it was a real pleasure meeting with her. I will leave a link to her story along with the other two links shown here down in the comments if you do wish to know more. I highly recommend checking them out. It truly was like stepping into a time machine, going back through time, back to the future style, and just taking a look at some of these old stories. I just want to give a mention to the man himself, Chris. He just has such an amazing voice that you could literally just listen to him all day, speaking on all sorts of various of topics. And I just want to say as well, he was such a lovely man, and any question that I did have for him, he took the time to answer. I didn't feel rushed in any way, he wanted to get us away. He always had the time for us to answer the question that I had, even though I didn't actually even know what I was actually trying to ask sometimes. And also I managed to get a picture with him. So I'm very happy and thankful for that, and thank you, Chris. It was a pleasure meeting you, and it was a great experience. Now do make sure you do stick around, because at the end here I am going to put a little section of the Q&A that was held at the end, along with some fun little bloopers that Chris Jackson experienced during his time reporting. If this does come back around, or a similar event at a later date perhaps, this is a highly recommended experience, especially if you do love news and have an interest in journalism. So are you a fan of Chris Jackson? And is this something that you would consider going to see if it happens again? Do let me know down in the comments. And as usual here, thank you all for watching.
Have a good lunch, did we? These are design students who've got doing these, so they're prototypes, but can any of these things really be seen in the future?
I think they absolutely could. And this trolley particularly, it's got a 360-degree trolley, and you can move it.
Peter Jackman from Egremont in Cumbria rightly won the World Gurning Championships in his hometown in September. Sadly, there was a mix-up and somebody else walked off with the trophy. But that was put right last night on the sports comedy quiz. They think it's all over.
And in case you didn't know, gurning is all about pulling faces.
Stop doing yours now. Go back to see you. Oh, Peter.
Yeah.
Ah, swallowing your ecstasy tablet, are you? Hi, it's Chris Jackson in Newcastle here. Hey, Chris? Now, it has to be said that those of us of the male persuasion have, I feel, been very wrongly accused by the ladies of not having very good toilet etiquette. So, this is a really good idea. Well, how else do you think we're going to do it? Here we go. Dead easy, just right. So in this
Christmas is the most amazing person.
wasn't it just? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, that's why I wanted to include him in it, because it was really affecting, obviously, because he was just such a lovely bloke, and his passion for showing, especially the East End and West End in this case, you know,
is not to be written off, which so many people
And
do.
it's lovely, his family are here.
I think it's like Chris. I think as well, just the thing about identity and the local cultural identity, but also I think how that goes hand in hand with the journalism, like the two parts kind of segue, and the changing identity of people, the kids who I work with or families. Just that industrial side of it's just almost gone.
Yeah,
you
show
know,
the lump of coal and they
That's
probably
his
don't know what it is.
son.
Yes, this is Ricky, by the way. This is Chris's son, like you saw earlier on. Yeah, so yeah, no, it has changed, isn't it? So it's just remarkable. It's always, you wonder what to cling on to as a North East identity if we haven't got all those big things. And let's be honest, who would want to go down a mine now, really? I mean, it's kind of a nostalgia about it, sort of rose-tinted glasses about it all. Who would really want to go down the mine? But certainly, it was kind of who we were, even if, I mean, my family, as it happens, ended up in the mines. We go back in the family history. Would I want anyone to go back down the mine? No.
Would you want anyone to go into a call centre equally? Well, not equally, but
Yeah, that can be pretty dangerous too. Territories. I mean, the call centre's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because that also was the big white hope for the North East, and the Geordie accent is, always touted as being one of the most friendly. And it's all very nice to hear that, but being on a sales line can't be great. I mean, I dealt with a sales call today from a media company, and I nearly lost my rag, but I can't try to remember who's on the other end of the phone. It's not their fault, and the service is terrible. But there you go.
By extension, Chris, would you want somebody to be going into journalism now?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do you feel as if there's a sort of golden age of journalism, perhaps particularly television journalism, that you're getting out at the right time, or you've had the best years?
That's a very leading question. Thank you, Paul. I loved it as a profession. I didn't start off I wanted to be in the media, I wanted to be in radio to start with, but as a kind of probably a jock, radio disc jockey. But journalism sort of came about, rather, it's a long story, I won't bore you with it here. But I ended up training as a journalist, and then just found I loved it, because you just get into so many people's lives. You meet people from, top society, if there is such a thing, to people who are homeless on the streets, to people who are rich, to people who've got nothing. And you get to go onto Ark Royal and flying jets and stuff. So you can't not love the job. And I recommend it to absolutely anybody. I do worry though, and I don't want to get too rose-tinted about it, but the clickbait thing drives me nuts. It drives me absolutely nuts, and I just think there are people who are calling themselves journalists writing this crap. And that's what I wouldn't want anyone to become a journalist who does that. I would want someone to be a journalist who gets into real stories, tells real stories, meets real people, and tells their stories. A lot of journalists